Hey everybody, it's Nate with Zbroz, and today we're going to attempt to understand ride height and the varying interpretations of ride height depending on the machine that you're setting up. Now, ride height is just referring to basically the amount of ground clearance and also the relationship of where your suspension is sitting at when the car is loaded and sitting on the ground. So one term that you might hear from time to time is full droop. That's when everything is fully extended. Ride height is when the car is just sitting on the ground with or without people, but loaded up as you would be using the car. Now, your ride height is adjusted pretty much in only one way, and that is going to be your spring preload. Now, there's a whole bunch of factors that also come into play when we talk about ride height, such as tire size. So you can have a preload setting on one car that runs a 28-inch or 29-inch tall tire and have the same preload setting with a car that's running a 32 or a 34 or a 35-inch tall tire, and the ride height is going to be different based on that tire size. But the basics when it comes to ride height and adjusting your ride height just comes down to your preload setting on your spring pack. And generally speaking, on pretty much all the UTV applications, it's going to be a threaded preload collar. Now, in order to adjust that ride height, you're going to want to take the weight off of the car. We have a vehicle just sitting here, so if we were going to make a ride height adjustment or a spring preload adjustment to raise or lower the car, we would want to put it on a lift or some kind of a jack so that the car is at full droop, or the suspension end that you're working on, if you're doing the front separate from the rear, you would lift the rear off of the ground in this case and make a preload adjustment. So follow the directions that are in the instructions for a starting point, and then from there it's just going to vary how much preload you add from that starting point based on the accessories and also the type of application that you're going to be doing. If you're rock crawling, a lot of people want to have a higher ride height because they're looking for ground clearance. If you're short course racing or you're doing some high-speed trail riding and you're running a lot of fire roads or flat corners, you're not going to want to have a super high ride height because the car's not going to corner as well. And so just keep that in mind. There's a lot of factors that go into that, but ride height is essentially a preload adjustment, and it really is up to the individual user and the type of use and application that you have, as well as the tire size you're running on the car. One thing that you're going to want to do a little bit when you are adjusting your ride height is you're going to want to take some measurements. So it's always good to take the measurement before you make any changes. So before you put a spring kit on, before you change tire and wheel, and always do it from the flat portion of the frame, and you're going to have to measure it at the front and the back. So if you're doing a rear measurement, just make sure that you do it kind of in the same position each time, and do it from the flat of the frame, and then do the same on the front. So then you know, as you make that preload adjustment, where you're moving from and where you're trying to achieve. So obviously if you're looking for 1, 2, 3, 4 inches of ride height gain, it may be a combination of adjusting your preload, going to a bigger tire in combination, or just putting more preload in. But if you don't know where your starting point is before you put your spring kit on, you don't really know how much you've gained or what you're moving to as you adjust that preload to get a higher ride height or to adjust it for a lower ride height. So hopefully that helps a little bit to understand what ride height is and how to make a change to a UTV application.